great princess too exceeding proud, that to strange knight no better countenance allowed. Sudden upriseth from her stately place the royal dame, and for her coach doth call. All hurtlen forth, and she with princely pace, as fair Aurora in her purple pall out of the east the dawning day doth call, so forth she comes, her brightness broad doth blaze. The heaps of people thronging in the hall do ride each other upon her to gaze. Her glorious glitter and light doth all men's eyes amaze. So forth she comes, and to her coach does climb, adorned all with gold and garlands gay, that seemed as fresh as Flora in her prime, and strove to match, in royal rich array, great Juno's golden chair, the which, they say, the gods stand gazing on, when she does ride to love's high house through heaven's brass-paved way, drawn of fair peacocks that excel in pride, and full of Argus eyes, their tails dispreaden wide. But this was drawn of 6 unequal beasts, on which her 6 sage counsellors did ride, taught to obey their bestial behests, with like conditions to their kinds applied, of which the first, that all the rest did guide, was sluggish idleness, the nurse of sin. Upon a slothful ass he chose to ride, arrayed in habit black, and amice thin, like to an holy monk, the service to begin. And in his hand his portesse still he bare, that much was worn, but therein little read. For of devotion he had little care, still drowned in sleep, and most of his days dead. Scarce could he once uphold his heavy head, to looken whether it were night or day. May seem the wain was very evil led, when such an one had guiding of the way, that knew not whether right he went, or else astray. From worldly cares himself he did esloin, and greatly shunned manly exercise. From every work he challenged essoin, for contemplation's sake. Yet otherwise his life he led, in lawless rioties, by which he grew to grievous malady, for in his lustless limbs through evil guise a shaking fever reigned continually. Such one was idleness first of this company, and by his side rode loathsome gluttony, deformed creature on a filthy swine. His belly was upblown with luxury, and eke with fatness swollen were his eyne, and like a crane his neck was long and fine, with which he swallowed up excessive feast, for want whereof poor people oft did pine. And all the way, most like a brutish beast, he spewed up his gorge, that all did him detest. In green vine leaves he was right fitly clad, for other clothes he could not wear for heat, and on his head an ivy garland had, from under which fast trickled down the sweat. Still as he rode he somewhat still did eat, and in his hand did bear a boozing can, of which he supped so oft, that on his seat his drunken course he scarce upholden can, in shape and life more like a monster than a man. Unfit he was for any worldly thing, and eke unable once to stir or go, not meet to be of counsel to a king, whose mind in meat and drink was drowned so, that from his friend he seldom knew his foe. Full of diseases was his carcass blue, and a dry dropsy through his flesh did flow, which by misdiet daily greater grew. Such one was gluttony, the second of that crew. And next to him rode lustful lechery upon a bearded goat, whose rugged hair and whorly eyes, the sign of jealousy, was like the person's self whom he did bear, who rough and black and filthy did appear, unseemly man to please fair ladies' eye, yet he of ladies oft was loved dear. when fairer faces were bid standen by. Oh, who does know the bent of women's fantasy? In a green gown he clothed was full fair, which underneath did hide his filthiness, and in his hand a burning heart he bare, full of vain follies and new-fangleness. For he was false and fraught with fickleness, and learned had to love with secret looks, and well could dance and sing with ruefulness, and fortunes tell, and read in loving books, and thousand other ways to bait his fleshly hooks. Inconstant man, that loved all he saw, and lusted after all that he did love, ne would his looser life be tied to law, but joyed weak women's hearts to tempt, and prove if from their loyal loves he might them move. Which lewdness filled him with reproachful pain of that foul evil which all men reprove, that rots the marrow and consumes the brain. Such one was lechery, the third of all this train. And greedy avarice by him did ride upon a camel loaden all with gold. 2 iron coffers hung on either side, with precious metal full as they might hold, and in his lap an heap of coin he told. For of his wicked pelf his god he made, and unto hell himself for money sold. Accursed usury was all his trade, and right and wrong alike in equal balance weighed. His life was nigh unto death's door aplast, and threadbare coat and cobbled shoes he wear, ne scarce good morsel all his life did taste, but both from back and belly still did spare, to fill his bags, and riches to compare. Yet child ne kinsman living had he none to leave them to, but thorough daily care to get, and nightly fear to lose his own. He led a wretched life, unto himself unknown, most wretched wight, whom nothing might suffice, whose greedy lust did lack in greatest store, whose need had end, but no end covetise, whose wealth was want, whose plenty made him poor, who had enough, yet wished evermore. A vile disease, and eke in foot and hand a grievous gout, tormented him full sore, that well he could not touch, nor go, nor stand. Such one was avarice, the fourth of this fair band. And next to him malicious envy rode upon a ravenous wolf, and still did chaw between his cankered teeth a venomous toad, that all the poison ran about his chaw. But inwardly he chawed his own maw at neighbours' wealth, that made him ever sad. For death it was when any good he saw, and wept that cause of weeping none he had. But when he heard of harm, he wexed wondrous glad. All in a kirtle of discoloured say he clothed was, apainted full of eyes, and in his bosom secretly there lay an hateful snake, the which his tail upties in many folds, and mortal sting implies. Still as he rode he gnashed his teeth, to see those heaps of gold with gripple covetise, and grudged at the great felicity of proud Lucifera and his own company. He hated all good works and virtuous deeds, and him no less that any like did use, and who with gracious bread the hungry feeds, his alms for want of faith he doth accuse. So every good to bad he doth abuse, and eke the verse of famous poets' wit he does backbite, and spiteful poison spews from leprous mouth on all that ever writ. Such one vile envy was, that fifth in row did sit. And him beside rides fierce revenging Wrath upon a lion, loath for to